Hello and welcome back to our debate, the weekend review. We're talking about getting people to live on the Isle of Man, and I think we've all been accustomed to seeing everyone leaving. I mean, the youngsters go to university and they don't want to come back. Maybe they come back when they're very old, when they want to start using all the facilities they've got here. And let's go on with that question. How can we create an opportunity for these younger people?
So right now, what are the opportunities for a young person who might be in, I'll take you now, for the fashion industry? None. There's none over here. The only one you can do is come over here and set up your own business and maybe be a designer. There's nothing else. So why are they going to choose us over Liverpool, Manchester, all those? And I'm just picking one industry. Creative industries are huge, as no. We lost the opportunity, and we should reinvest in that, absolutely, because film industry, I mean, that you're not just talking about skilled workers just being able to film. It's everything. It's hospitality. It reaches cleaning. It reaches absolutely huge lots and lots of different areas.
The government didn't make a success of that either.
They didn't make a success, but you see all these. I mean, there was one area in Ireland, Mullingar, that's I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, that's just had this huge investment, all generated by their Chamber of Commerce, and it's going to create 1,000 jobs immediately, and it massive 24-acre studio. Absolutely huge, because obviously the film industry, lots and lots of Netflix, it's a booming industry.
Well, we had it all. We had it all here, but they're very finicky, the film industry. They'll just move on to the next low tax rating place that's going to give them more money back.
That was what closed it down, wasn't it?
And we were too early, weren't we? Let's face it now. We probably might make a big deal of it now.
But the other thing is, we were that obsessed, of course, with not being a tax haven, because that's the word they don't like. Well, actually, if we really wanted to put our foot down and get some money here, what we should be saying is, well, we don't care what all these things say. We've got to fund our island, and this is what we're going to do. So, Mr. Apple, Mr. Amazon, if you want to come and set your corporate headquarters up here, we'll do you a deal. And who cares what these other places think? But we've signed all these agreements, which it's just like, shooting ourselves in the foot.
Listening to this conversation and its degree of concern about the future, which is very, very significant, and rightly so. Perhaps I might be forgiven when asked the question, well, what do you think should happen? And I'm sorry to go back to it, but it's almost Custer's last stand for me in terms of I'm praying that the Crogger Gas initiative happens, because if it comes off, it's worth around about, roughly speaking, to the Exchequer, about £750 million a year for 15 years. Now, I have to declare I'm a shareholder of it.
I was going to do that anyway, but
I've done that. So,
always do that. Yeah.
But I am there because I am worried sick about the future of the Isle of Man, and that could be the major change for good. But I'll tell you this.
We can't put all our hopes on that, though.
But
I mean,
well,
that's another conversation.
It is, but what was strange was listening to some of the comments in the debate in Tynwald about it, where people were making totally erroneous statements, saying, "Oh, well, we won't get the gas till the 2030s." I mean, look, let me just say this to current members in Tynwald: if you're going to enter into debates and put an argument forward, for goodness sake, do your research and get it accurate. And to call the senior guy of Crogger, who's a hugely experienced engineer, the salesman, I think was just diminishing the whole thing into from the sublime to the ridiculous. But if that comes off, oh no, you're right, it cannot be the only thing that we rely on. But if it comes off, it could open the doors to all sorts of things.
I mean, the next big thing is what we keep looking for, and according to, I think the paper's really highlighting it about the marijuana issue. I mean, that sort of slipped on by me, and I did mention you with the Chief Minister.
Can I just pick up on the gas thing? I know Chris said he's a shareholder. I'm not a shareholder of it. I've got nothing to do with it. But I just think here we have another example of the Isle of Man arguing with itself. Mm-hmm. And I go back to when I was in the Department of Trade and Industry, we had a consultation on wind and renewable energies. The UK were building the wind farms out. We were talking about it. Yeah. Well, we're still talking about it. That was in 2008. We're now in 2022. We've got the same now with they were arguing over, putting these things in the sea, and we'll have to find out what happens to the marine life. Well, All that work's been done. It was let's find a million reasons not to do it. And the exact same thing is happening with the gas. They're all in there arguing about it because of climate change. The Isle of Man's not going to save the world. It's not going to happen. We're a pixel on Google Earth.
We're
a pixel.
Crogger is a transition fuel and recognised as such internationally. And Crogger will start building wind farms on the Crogger area site.
And we've talked about this. So the
wind
farms,
to get on with
wind farms.
Because the Isle of Man, we always used to say back in the days of, although he was politically on the opposite side of the political spectrum to me, Eddie Lowy, he was in Tynwald when they were actually really forward thinking. You remember they built the the Sulby Reservoir, big projects. They got on with it and they delivered. Now, and don't forget, a lot smaller government in those days, and look at what they achieved. They brought in these new sectors, the finance sector, the shipping, and all the rest of it. What have we achieved in the last sort of 25 years?
Okay, I know.
And it's the same.
So like,
it's the same with this, and we're seeing it all over again.
So it's not just at this level. It's down to
every
single level. So you can't put chairs outside your restaurant because people suddenly complain about you can't walk on the pavement, and we've got to think of the Equality Act, and we've got to all of these things. And I think we've almost kind of we
hamstring ourselves every single time
because we're overgoverned. We're going round in circles.
Overgoverned.
And
there's somebody somewhere in government who has to fill a form in.
You said about handing it back to England. The fact we're self-governed meant we should be able to do all of these things quickly and efficiently. Obviously, I used to live in the UK 10 years ago, and I used to live in this lovely little area. I won't mention where it is because you'll all prejudge me. And there was a lovely restaurant there, and it was my favourite restaurant. Used to go there all the time, and basically went back just recently, and there must be now about 10 restaurants along this one little road, all absolutely thriving off each other. They've got their seating out onto the pavement. They haven't got the car park because God forbid if we lose a car park space in Douglas. And it's absolutely thriving, and these businesses are surviving and looking after each other. You can't get in that restaurant, so you go across the road to that one, and it's absolutely brilliant. And we're missing that kind of
and that's what's trying to get to. Like in the 60s, we got Casino first one, and then we didn't quite get
have a second one, and they argued about that for 20 years because somebody didn't like the man.
I'm trying to get.
What we have to do now is we have to zone that. Right. We're saying, okay, that zone. So we all agree. We've all agreed that zone now is for this, and that's where we're at. And we're waiting for all these plans to come through to give us the zones that we can develop it.
Bureaucrats, and that's the problem.
And what they get away with is mind blowing. And the integrity of government is in question. It happened again the other day when Tynwald nodded through an increase in the sewage works for Peel and Laxey from 23 plus million to 40 million. Let me remind everybody who's willing to listen that MEMU came to Tynwald a number of years ago and said, we're going to go regional because it's cheaper. So everybody nodded and passed it through. When, in fact, I knew the reasons were entirely different to that. And they have the face, the audacity to come back to Tynwald and say, well, we said it's cheaper. Well, actually, we now need 40 million. Everybody goes, yeah, okay. For goodness sake, wake up and smell the coffee, will you? If this sort of behaviour goes on, we are out of it.
I was trying to get to this point. Is marijuana the next big thing? Because they're trying to look at the laws.
Cannabis.
Yeah, but it could be sweeping away all the laws on drugs or something. To make this place have its differences.
I don't know enough about it to
No, but you'll never get the will through government wants you to do anything.
No, I think it's just a bit of a red herring. That if we and allow people to come here and have recreational, I think that's the trouble. The debate gets skewed between the medicinal factories that they're looking at putting in, and then there's one sector think it's going to be some sort of free for all they're opening up. And it's not going to happen.
It's difficult to find these differences. I mean, pub hours, the larger optics, although we're about to change, I see, to the UK standard because they can't find the bigger optics. You see that one?
We back in Alan Bell's days, we changed to 24-hour licensing. We were at the forefront of that.
Not that you'd noticed it overnight. I was expecting like crazy things going on, but it never happened.
Yeah, but
you were trailblazers.
They were. I mean, that's the point I'm making about it. Because we're in charge of ourselves, we should be doing it, and we're not.
The world is changing, and certainly non-recreational marijuana is legal in many states in America, and I'm trying to think, is it Canada as well?
Yeah.
And you know,
it's not been without its problems.
No, it hasn't. The acceptance of it is changing. Where we'll fall in the history of this, I don't know. I really don't know. I think the medicinal cannabis is the first step, and I think that, I mean, even that, you know, from my small understanding, I understand that's had its challenges again from government. So I think we definitely are heading in the right direction. I'd also like to see, I've questioned this to the Minister and also the Minister of Home Affairs as well, that people who have had criminal records because they've had to grow their own medicinal cannabis, if they are technically need the medicinal cannabis for their own personal use, for their health, to solve their emotional or physical problems, then they've got criminal records. What can we do about, you know, expunging those? Because we all kind of agree that we've put the barriers up for them to be able to get medicinal cannabis here. They've been faced to grow that here on the island and had no other resort to do that in great pain, and yet we're prosecuting them. And so we need to be, those are areas that we need to be on the forefront, kind of going, it's our fault that you've not been able to get medicinal cannabis from the UK to here. Anything that happens to you should be expunged, and that should be absolutely what should happen. And I don't see that happening.
Retrospective.
Well, look how long it's taken for, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's retrospective.
Being gay
of law
on the Isle of Man,
is a very, very difficult thing to go down, because, you know.
But when we know it's wrong, we should be bold to put it right.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
That's my feelings.
But it's. I think it's a bit of a sideshow, really, to where we're going with this, because at the moment we're almost.
Sorry,
fiddling,
no.
The
economy.
Burns, you know.
I think I'm picking up that phrase, bold, courageous. I think Alf's used those words. Now, what I would say to Alf is, and I want him to succeed, I really do, because he's the only show in town. Let's be frank. I desperately want him to succeed, but by God, he's got to live and exercise those phrases, but words, bold and courageous, in terms of getting government fit for purpose. Because if we don't get that right almost first, let's get that right and then move on into other challenges, because the world is in a state of tumult at the moment. Everybody used to understand what the Manx offer was. And this utterly confuses it and takes us down a completely different route with no certainty whatsoever.
Just to wrap this up, I'd like some positivity out of this, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gone ahead and done this. I mean, not just him, obviously, but you know, they've spent their £1 million to come up with something. So what pluses can you give him in this report? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Are we all just going to be leaving here and turn the lights off, you know, last one out? I mean, give me some hope, or give the public some hope. Claire, nothing much coming out of your mouth so far.
I'll start.
Have a think about it.
Please start.
Yes, sorry.
I'll start. This
amazed.
report says, the KPMG report says it's only half the story. The other half is government reform. When it has, on the occasion, spoken to business has said, you've really got to reform government. So I say to government, for goodness sake, reform yourself and then come back and have another look at this. If they do that, I think there's a chance. Okay.
I agree. That's exactly what they've got to do. But the machine is that they can't reform it. It's just
positivity, Jude.
Well, I'm trying to. Well, the only way we're trying to flip. But we know how big the machine is, and that's the problem. You could put, you know, the the biggest reformer in there. But unless we accept that our whole setup is broken, we're not going to do it, because how do you reform it? You've got so many problems. One of the things where they did have to reform was when we had the big banking crash back in 2008. Somewhere around there, and it was during, I think it was the Tony Brown government, and I can remember getting Tynwald papers. The police knocked on the door and there was an emergency session called, because basically the money was running out and they had this massive problem, and they went through a stage of they had schemes to downsize government. Well, that started to work, but they didn't keep going. And what's happened is, as we've come out of that and it's got further away, these departments have started to grow and grow and grow. I mean, we've seen departments advertising for strategy and policy, new jobs. And this is the problem, pen pushers. So what we've got is we've got a whole tier of people in charge of the man or woman who fixes the road, but one person fixing the road. You know, it's that sort of pyramid, the wrong way up.
The police who didn't like that they brought somebody in to do all their multimedia.
They've hired somebody to mess around on social media all day.
I think that's not necessary.
The police officers were doing that. The press person was doing it. But no, we'll employ somebody new. And this is going on in every department. And just a quick example. Yeah. When I joined one of the departments, I think it was DAF at the time, one of the I got a memorandum welcoming me to the department, and the first line was from this particular division: when I started in the department, it was just me. I now have a team of 10.
10 people.
And I thought, that's actually nothing to be proud of. No. And that's the mentality we've got. We have to expand. So,
right, I'll give you some positivity.
Okay.
I'll try and give you some positivity on this. Look, ultimately, we know this is a challenge. We know that this is not going to be an easy ride. We know we've got some work to do. I say we because ultimately, even though I'm not in government, as a backbencher, I must do what I can to make this happen. And that is my responsibility. It does give us a goal. It does give us an idea, that a sort of a focus. And that's what you need from a strong leader. You need that focus so that we can all get on and do things. So that's my positivity. Okay. Whether it's right, whether it's a right vision, whether we are going to achieve it, we've damn well got to try.
In 4 years, when this end of government arrives, 4 years to go, right?
But he's very clever, because Alpha's done this as a well, I actually don't know if it's a 5 or 10 or 15 years. There's many years.
But something should happen while he's in office.
So he can. Exactly. This, for him, this means he's got to be in office for 10 years as Chief Minister to deliver this. So it's very smart.
Again, how though? I mean, it's all
but absolutely. We know that.
He's wanting us to be positive.
We know that.
No, well, you know,
we've just said all of that. We've just said, absolutely, we know we've got challenges. We know we don't know how to do it. But at least the positive side is someone has come up and the Chief Minister's gone, here you go, here's the vision, this is what we want. And that's the positive side.
You didn't need to spend £1 million to come up with that vision.
What this report does say, it does say effectively that this project has got to be centrally led. It says it in there. And at a strategic level. And that feeds exactly into the remorseless comments from me about separating strategy off from operations and making the divisions at the departments of government operational organisations that serve the public. And meanwhile, the centre of government gets, as it were, more intelligent. There are exceptions to this in terms of strategic thinking in education, which have to be specialised, and in health, and to some extent in justice as well. But if you take all the service delivery arms of government, they have got to learn how to serve the public, which is what they're there to do. And we need to create an intelligent government in the centre that can start making sense of this and converting what they can into
ideas.
Isn't that what they tried with the Cabinet Office? And that's just...
the Cabinet Office, the Cabinet Office is, in principle, is right. What's wrong is that the departments have remained legal entities with their own everything in there, as you said, somebody for strategy, somebody for pencils, and so on and so forth. And Claire mentioned questioned it earlier on. Was somebody a CEO or a COO? Most of them should be COOs.
Absolutely.
We never used to have all these multi.
Yeah.
They had the chief executive of the department, who also often was responsible for a division. Now you've got senior
COs.
officers with deputy senior officers, and then you've got the senior management teams. You know, it should basically just be.
In terms of productivity, the government's got bigger and the services have got worse.
They have.
Go back to square one, get your homework right, and come back.
That's exactly what I said.
If I have my little bit in there, you say government's bigger. No, I just.
Paul, what do you think?
I renewed. Thank you. I renewed my driving license today, and I know these things don't go up by inflation normally. I mean, I know we've now got big inflation, but all the government things.
How much did it cost?
35 or something now. But what I'm trying to say is that you renew things, and they normally each year go up by much more than the government, the inflation figure maybe. But if you've got more people in government, you have to sort of itemize it down and charge more. And your thing about steam packet and keeping the cost down for things seems to me so obvious. Why is it not in there?
If they're going to subsidise anything, it should be the cost of travel. And Jersey are doing it at the moment with their deal with BA, and the UK government do it with the Scottish Isles, and they do it with Cornwall.
Guernsey have just their airline have just made a profit.
You only have to write off.
That's a huge operation. That Rini has lost money forever.
That's because they wrote off the debts.
Yeah, so let's don't buy. I don't want to buy. I don't know if we really want to go down the route of buying an airline.
We should just pay an existing.
Right. Final thought.
Just on this issue, and I would ask Alf to think again. In a number of it, I think in an earlier presentation, he talked about we've got to go back to revisiting SAVE. Now, SAVE failed last time, and I'm telling Alf now it'll fail again because it's asking the departments to look after themselves.
Turkey's Christmas.
Not going to happen. Alf, SAVE will not work unless you deal with it, drive it from the centre.
Right.
No, Chris is absolutely right. You can't ask the departments because they've all got their little
empires.
Their little empires, and it will never ever change. You need somebody to come in, and there has to be a call.
Okay, Claire.
I absolutely shuddered when I heard SAVE being mentioned, and
that was the same whole thing of when the ransom thing. He was, I think it was more right. Let's drag something out to some positivity potentially.
It's just ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It didn't work, and every civil servant knows it didn't work as well.
To be fair to Alf, he's got a hell of a job on.
He has.
Really has, and I do. Despite all I've said, I wish him well, but for goodness sake, Alf, please do it.
That's a good point to leave it. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme, and we'll have another one at some point soon.